when I first heard that we didn't have the right locally to say no to fracking. In other words, they can come in your backyard more or less or nearby your where you live and set it up. And I thought, wow, how could that be? How could that be?
When people felt that their source of water was being threatened, I mean, it
Mhm.
still kind of chokes me up when I
Hmm,
read these handwritten letters by people who were so concerned about the future and what was
hmm,
going to be left for their children. I mean,
hmm,
sorry.
hmm.
Oh,
It
no.
Yeah.
I
just,
know. Mhm.
I mean, it was
It
that
is.
heartfelt.
Welcome to Truth and Reckoning, a broadcast from CELDF. In this show, we'll learn from frontline organizers and communities fighting against environmental destruction. We'll explore different perspectives and innovative strategies for movement building, the potency and the potential of rights of nature, and effective action in defense of our communities. And we'll share inspiring stories of people working towards right relationship with the land and each other. I am your host, Max Wilbert.
Welcome to CELDF's Truth and Reckoning. And tonight we're going to be talking with two activists from Ohio that are from two very different communities. You guys, I think, are about, 2.5 hours away from each other in the state of Ohio?
That
About that?
sounds about right.
Two or
Yeah.
2.5,
Yeah,
3 hours?
good 3 hours actually.
Oh, is it
Okay.
three? Oh,
I like
wow.
Sherry. A good
Yeah,
3 hours. She's made the trip to Columbus, but you haven't
yeah,
made
He
the
I
knows
trip
sure
to
better than
will.
Williams
I do.
County. Yeah.
Yeah.
But instead of me introducing like where they're at, I'm going to just tell you who they are and then I'm going to let them describe their community to you and paint the picture so you get an idea, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners, haven't even been to Ohio, and possibly not to either of your communities. And I think that's really important to describe. We're talking about now that place-based communities that we're part of, the ecosystems there. And I think it's important for people to get a visual of our different communities and how they're different. And yet they're the same in a lot of ways, right? We have the same challenges. So with us tonight is Bill Lyons, who is in Columbus, Ohio. He's also the president right now of the Ohio Community Rights Network, and he's also very active. He'll tell you later about the effort they're working on in Columbus to make change to their charter and their city there. And then we also have Sherry Fleming with us, who is in Williams County, which in Bryan, Ohio, very close to the Indiana border. And Bill's Columbus, if you don't know, is right smack dab in the middle of the state of Ohio. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and paint a picture for our listeners of what your community is like.
Okay. Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm in a big city, Columbus, growing. I think it's the 14th largest city in the country now. It's probably will soon pass 1 million people. Not too far along. The Columbus proper and the metro area is larger than that. And yeah, it obviously being a city, and it's described as blue because practically everybody, all elected officials are Democratic. But where I live, it's actually I feel more connected with because Columbus is so big. The community called Clintonville, which is a little north of the Ohio State University, and with that, even though I'm close to the main streets, our backyard is a ravine, which is quite lovely, and lots of trees or woods. And then we've got the Olentangy River, and and some nice parks. So I think of it as myself living more in this subset of Columbus.
Great. Thanks, Bill. I've been there many times. It's a lovely city. Used to be a lot of farmland, but no longer.
Nope.
And then Sherry, you want to describe where you are?
Well, if you want to see the farmlands, you need to come to far northwest Ohio. Williams County is predominantly conventional agriculture. Our population is under 40,000 people. We only have one city, the city of Bryan, which doesn't even have a population of 9,000 people. I live in a township just north of Bryan. Um, we do have a number of CAFOs, and when you look at our population, if you were to look at the livestock numbers, we may be outnumbered by the amount of livestock in our county than there are people. And one of the things that I think is probably unique about our area is that we're totally dependent on the Machindo Aquifer, which is very prolific, and it also spans a 3-state area of Michigan and Indiana, and there happen to be 3 counties in each of the states that rely on this source of water. But our county is the only county that's totally dependent on that water source. And I guess if you wanted to stereotype us, we are a red conservative community population.
Thanks, Sherry. And just for our listeners who don't know what a CAFO is, can you just really quickly, what does that stand for?
Oh, okay. Um, some people might call them factory farms. They're known as either confined or concentrated animal feeding operations, and it
Okay.
has become the dominant form of livestock and poultry raising in this country.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, because not everyone knows what that means. Um,
Yeah.
So again, you guys are both from, really different types of communities. And yet, I think people, they always, a lot of times, I get a lot of calls, obviously, from people all over the country. And, they always think their community, is unique. And it is. Every community in this country is unique. But when it comes to trying to protect their community from either some project they don't want or some harm they see, that's when we discover all the similarities we have because we all operate under the same legal system and government systems. I mean, there's little differences whether you live in a township or municipality, but the overall basic structure of law and the system operates the same. So one of the things I thought, would be nice if you guys just personally, and it doesn't have to be anything you're working on currently, but some issues, maybe even from your, past experiences that you've worked on and been involved in. So either in the current community or maybe you lived somewhere else at the time. But, if it somehow impacted you so much that it got you activated, right, to do, get off the couch, as they say, right?
Well, let's see. What besides, I assume we'll talk about our initiatives further, but if you want me to speak about other things that have got me active besides is oil and gas issues, what they call brine, but it's really the byproduct of oil and gas. It's very salty, but it's full of toxic chemicals and it's radioactive, and they spread it on roads for de-icing and dust suppressant. So that's one of the things that has got me active. Other things that our group has met with the water department a few times and feel that their response about our water is good for more agricultural issues, but not so much for oil and gas. And then also we've met with them about there's this big uh, plant coming in called Intel, which a lot of people have heard about, making chips. Of course, it's been delayed. It was supposed to start this year, and now it's delayed for another 6 years. But they're going to need a massive amount of water, and they produce a lot of waste, so that's been another issue. And other things I've worked on in campaigns is anti-gerrymandering issues and reproductive rights. I've helped them get some signatures on their campaigns.
So what was the thing that really got you though, you know, that got under
started.
your skin, I guess, because I know for me,
Yeah.
like, what it was, right? Because in my community, so I'm just
Yeah.
curious what it was that got
Yeah.
you.
Well, back about 10 years ago, and of course, I knew things weren't right, and I was always very concerned with uh, the state of our so-called democracy, and also about what we're doing to our environment, doing to the rest of nature, our planet. And so I found that the community rights and rights of nature movement, when I first heard about that in a local campaign that um, was started here locally with a couple activists, and I joined like less than a year later, about a year later, kind of combined those two issues. And then they had a ballot initiative, and so I got involved. And then since then, it's just grown and grown.
You can't get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sherry, how about you? You've been doing this longer than either of us.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, I guess I should share the fact that I'm not originally from Williams County. I grew up in Lorain County in the 1960s, within walking distance of Lake Erie, and never swam in the lake because back then, as we know, the river was on fire. I mean, it was a mess. I went to college in the early 70s, so you had Vietnam, and I got really interested in the nuclear issue at that time. But I guess, to be honest, as a young person, I kind of bounced around. I wasn't sure what I was doing, so I'd send what money I could to some other group that was fighting an issue that I was concerned about. And I came to this area in 1980, and then got married, started a family, and I had worked in the agricultural community. I'm an ag major from Ohio State, and so at that time, really, even in the early 1980s, there were still a lot of what I would call independent family farmers, smaller amounts of livestock yards, supporting infrastructure for the agricultural community. And it was towards the end of and really, as far as issues in this area, I mean, there were things about the school, maybe about the school system, and that you would go to meetings, but nothing that really drew people together. And it wasn't until about 1998 or so we began to see a shift. There was some type of agreement between the United States and the Netherlands, and you began to see Dutch families coming over, and you saw the growth of this concentrated animal feeding operations. They were called factory farms, people called them mega farms. And a neighbor of ours who farms happened to be the one that told me that they were concerned there was a proposed 3,000 head dairy that was going to come in about a mile and a half north of where we live. And just out of curiosity, one of the people near where I live had put a notice in the newspaper that said they were having a meeting in the church. And I mean, there were a few hundred people that showed up. And I guess I got pulled into it. It was kind of, at the time, it was difficult for me because even though I wasn't raised on a farm, I felt connected to the farming community. And because I mean, the people that were organizing wanted to keep out this large dairy coming into the area. And I was pretty torn. I went to the meetings, and because I had the kind of background I did, they kind of latched onto me. and and boy, once I got associated with the citizen group that formed, it was almost like you'd chosen a side. And not that, I mean, there were people that knew me in the area that still, we got along and things like that, but you definitely began to see a fracture in the community. And it just, I mean, it's expanded into areas that I never thought I would get pulled into. And we did we're the second. Our citizen group right now is the Williams County Alliance, but there was a prior group, Citizens for the what was it? Concerned Citizens for the Protection of the Beaver Creek Watershed, that formed out of that. And
So
I
so it was
don't know
that
how you
one.
want me to take
Yeah.
it from here, because I
Well,
think
no, but I think it's interesting. So it was that, like, pretty much you didn't have that split, that fracture in the community before that first big industrial, like, entity, dairy farm came in. Like, is that really what did it? Was that like the first crack?
no. And to be honest, I really feel like, and I guess I'm going to point a finger at Farm Bureau, but they tried to play on the fact, because they would put out information that these were people who weren't from this area, that didn't know what farms smelled like, and they were so disconnected, and that was totally false, because the people that I began to know had grown up on farms, and they did know the difference of what was happening. But there was an effort, I believe, on the, what you want to call, powerful influences, to try and create that fracture within the community. And it's been a shame, because really the farming community faces some of the same things that we do, where when you try to solve a problem, you're shoved into a system that doesn't really provide the answer that, the solution that you want. And it's hard to break out of that.
Mhm. Yeah, that was interesting, because that idea of fracturing, right, the community and splitting it apart. I mean, I found that in my community too. Mine was the
Mm.
urban oil and gas drilling and fracking, but it was like immediately that you're either with us, against us kind of thing. And before that, like, it was the community. So the people leasing their land who would get money are then definitely, pitted against their neighbors who don't want it, right? So yeah, it's interesting. And it didn't matter the issue.
Mhm.
Have you seen that in Columbus too, Bill?
About dividing,
Mm-hmm.
um, not as much. Yeah, with that. I
Mm-hmm.
think when it comes to, and I didn't mention like the initiative that got me into it. I mentioned that it was involved in the community rights and rights of nature, which democracy had to do with that, and about our environment. But it was really about water and about fracking. Ours was, and I didn't even know this, that there was some fracking waste. They're not fracking in Columbus, but they were dumping fracking waste north of Columbus, and it's in our watershed. So I think most of the people, when we've collected signatures for a campaign, I've agreed to sign on. I mean, you get a few people who say, "Oh, I like fracking. It provides jobs and things like that." But yeah, for the most part, trying to like divide the community on the issue, no, not for us. Maybe because Columbus is such a big one, and we really haven't. Should have made the ballot, but we haven't made the ballot, and so if we did, there might have been more of those kind of tactics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess, too, I guess, talking about, issues coming to the community and like the splits and the fight, it's kind of leading me into that whole thing, like, your personal experiences, but also your community's experiences along the way. And like, because you've both worked on community rights and rights of nature, campaigns, and just kind of like maybe lessons learned along the way, right? Like, things maybe that, because I know I didn't know a lot of things when I started about this, and things that kind of maybe you evolved, and learned as you did these campaigns, because you've also both done, I should say that, multiple attempts. It's not like you tried once and gave up, which is also really good. And that's something to be admired by both of you, because, a lot of people try once, and if it doesn't, work or get the results they want, they just give up or go to something else. So I'm just curious, yeah, like some of your experiences in both your communities, because they are so different, and things that you've learned.
Ray, you want to tackle that? Then I
O-
can
Okay.
give my
Yeah.
2 cents
Well,
worth.
I I guess in the beginning, I mean, when you were talking about the first instance with this large dairy, I know myself, and I think a lot of people weren't aware of how little power we have at the local level, because people were angry at our township trustees, they were angry at our commissioners, and it's just been such a learning experience. And I mean, I I don't know if I'm typical or not, but I think I am, because I see other people who have entered into these activist roles that go through where you do all the things you're supposed to that's set up in the regulatory system, and you tend to go to a zillion conferences that are being offered by different large environmental organizations, trying to learn as much as you can. You learn about things, manure management plans and types of things that you never thought you would dream that you have a little bit of expertise in, to do that. And I mean, it took us, at least myself, and I feel like the core members that were involved in the beginning, it took us a few years of jumping through all these hoops to figure out that the system isn't set up to listen to us, to address our concerns, and that no matter what we do, it seemed like there was an agenda in place that was going to go through no matter what we did. I mean, to be honest, we did have a few wins where we got ahead of something ahead of time, and there was enough support in the community. And I mean, this, I'm talking about in the business community and about every other entity in the community, that we had a 6 to 8 million laying hen operation that was looking at locating here, that we learned about ahead of time. And so, I mean, it was just overwhelming. Our local elected officials were opposed. And so, but there was nothing in the law that allowed us to say no. But because there was so much opposition uniformly in our area, the industry decided to go to another location. We actually pushed it on to another community, which isn't a good
Right.
feeling, because that chicken farm was actually pushed on us from the Bell Fountain area. And then we pushed it back down on them, that area again, and it ended up over east of Columbus. But out of that, about 2006 was when someone told us about CELDF. And we knew with this large chicken farm, we were going to lose. If they started the permitting process, it was going to be over. And we reached out to CELDF, and some of the organizers came in then. And I think the thing that people, when you talk about community rights and rights of nature, the idea of local self-government was something that we had some people in local elected officials that were very interested in this. I mean, it was something that they were open to pursuing. I mean, naturally in the background was always that concern. We don't want to get sued. But they were very open. I mean, we had a number of community meetings. At that time, early on, rights of nature wasn't something that was as, what I want to say, dominant with CELDF as it is right now. And I guess warping forward to 2018, 2019, when we did a home rule county charter initiative, we did have language within that initiative, rights of nature to the Machindo Aquifer, because from the factory farm issue, all of a sudden here recently, over the past few years, we've had threats to the commodification of the Machindo Aquifer. And so the thing that I see with rights of nature is that there is concern with people, because when you talk about rights, they begin to look at how will that restrict me. And we really haven't put as much effort into that, because as difficult as it is to know that this existing system isn't going to get you where you want to go, it's very hard to do nothing and you keep getting pulled back in there, even though you know it's not going to work. And so it's been a struggle to get our group to, I don't know, you think you can do two things at once, but it's not as easy, at least I haven't found, to do that. Because we'll talk about rights of nature and begin to talk about things, but then it's so easy you'll get people getting pulled back into the regulatory system when you face a threat.
Hmm. Yeah, what we're taught to do, like you said, it's what we're taught. That's where you're
Right.
supposed to go, and that's really difficult to get people to think outside that system. And I really appreciate you being honest and saying
Well,
that.
and
I was going to say that, when you moved the chicken farm that was coming, that, yeah, your win, right, with air quotes, is, moving it to someone else's community. And so, again, that's because people think somehow they're not connected to the ecosystem or environment. So that next community, how far it still can impact you where you are, right? But that's, again, our separation from the ecosystems and bioregions and all that we're part of.
Mhm.
So we're working on that's what we're trying to shift with the movement, right? Bill, did you have some things you
Yeah,
wanted to
well,
talk
when you
about?
ask about lessons learned, well, I guess the first thing when I first heard about that we didn't have the right locally to say no to fracking. In other words, they can come in your backyard more or less or nearby where you live and set it up. And I thought, wow, how could that be? How could that be? So that was the first thing that was kind of shocking. And then learn about that we're supposed to be Ohio, a home rule state that says we're supposed to be able to pass local law for our health, safety, and welfare as long as it doesn't conflict with general law. But then the state keep passing more and more things to tell cities, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. Whether it's raising the minimum wage, whether it's saying or having any decision on oil and gas issues, whether it's plastic banning single-use plastic bags or having rent control, or the list goes on and on. We could talk more about that. Uh, then I learned first, and then how much time it takes to organize campaigns and get out there and as volunteers, thousands of hours collecting signatures. But it's rewarding too, because you get to really connect with people, and then you feel good because most people, vast majority, agree with what you're working on. Probably over 90%, I would say. Uh, then it was a lesson learned about, well, you think, okay, we got the signatures, so
You
we'll get on
followed
the ballot.
you followed the rules. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that was another that we learned that all three branches of the government, and then they created really a fourth thing like the Board of Elections, which isn't really a branch of government, gave them a power that they're not supposed to have, keep us off the ballot there. So like with the city officials, with state lawmakers, boards of elections, and then the Ohio Supreme Court have all fought against us, and how hard it was to realize this right of local self-governance that we're supposed to have. So I guess those have been some lessons, but I guess another lesson I've learned is you have to change what you mean by success too. And so part of it is you educate, agitate, organize, and you may not get it the first time and second time. And when we look at movements that have been successful in the past, the civil rights movement, the women's suffragette movement, and others, that it was that persistence, and people told them what they were doing, it wasn't going to make a difference, but ultimately it did. So.
Well, your stories makes me think of, like, do you think we live in a democracy?
No way. No way. I don't think so. Maybe there have
Sherry?
been times it's slightly better, but basically, the system is set up to make us feel like it's a democracy. Like I said, if we can't decide on issues locally for our health, safety, and welfare, so many of them, then that's not democratic. That's controlled by the state. And then if you look at most of the other institutions, they're more of that we live in. They're authoritarian in many ways. That you look at workplace. It's been under a capitalistic system. There isn't a democracy there. You're pretty much told what to do when you show up for work there, and there's no input locally. When you look at technology, it's thrown on us, and there's no input from the community to say, hey, should we even be doing this? Is this good for us? Good for the not just for us, but for nature and for the planet. So no, we don't live in a democracy, and there are many other examples. Go to, and I've done it before, and you have too. I know both of you. You go, and I think it's important, but you testify at the State House, and there might be 500 testifying against some bill, and only about 10 who are paid industry people, and the bill passes anyway. So they're not even representing the people. So we see that example. So yeah, no, I don't think that we really live in a democracy.
Sherry, what do you think? What's your vote? And if not, what do you think we ever did?
No, never. I mean, that was what was eye-opening. It is. I'll never forget the first democracy school I went to, and I mean, there was 3 of us that went from our group in 2006, and when they began speaking about the founding fathers, I mean, it's hard to explain that feeling that you've been taught something your whole life, and all of a sudden you begin to read some other things that put it in a different perspective. and once that perspective changes, for me it was like our whole lives are like relationships, and within those relationships a power structure. And it seems so simple all of a sudden to look at, okay, in whatever relationship you're in, who has power or how is the power shared, and that it's so easy that whoever has power can be so abusive with it. And if those are the people who power what the rules are, it's just a rigged system. And I don't know, it's just become so eye-opening to me. But yet I do understand, having gone through what I did early on, that I felt like sometimes you need to let people go through this journey, because you can tell people things, but like with me, at least it made such a difference to go through that, walking through the fire of learning just how the system really worked. And I'm not sure, I don't know. I guess we're all different, and different things may trigger that, but I just see things in such a different way than I used to. And we're not taught to participate, really. I mean, we're encouraged to vote, but I think so many of us, myself included, as far as attending, your local government meetings, we don't do that. We just assume, in some ways, in a representative government, we assume that people that we've elected are going to respond to our concerns and our needs. And you begin to find out whose needs and concerns are being addressed, and they aren't ours.
Right. I remember going to democracy school too, and that was like a huge revelation. My first one, about the story about the founding fathers and the Constitution and how it was written, with armed guards at the door and blacked out windows. And yeah, they weren't allowed to reveal the notes till after everybody was dead. And I was like, what? I never learned that. But yeah, and that's what we're always given as the excuse, right? But we live in a republic, or we live in a representative democracy, but we know, like, now how corrupted that whole system has become. And it was always about the elites, the 1% or whatever, even back at that time, protecting their interests to control and have power, like you said. And it just hasn't changed. It's always stayed that way. I guess I'm curious, listening to you guys both reflect back on those things. how would you define, and because you've both experienced harms coming to your community that you've tried to stop, so how would you define, because CELDF is now coming up with this new program area of community resistance and resilience. And I mean, I know, how I define that and how like working through it because it's new, but I'm curious from community members who've done this, like how do you define what's community resistance and resilience?
Mm. Well, I guess when I think of it, resistance is standing up for those things that you feel that aren't right. You're not going to just accept them, whether it's a ballot initiative, whether it's showing up and testifying against something, whether it's trying to organize people and let them know about something that they may not, because a lot of things are hidden from us. Uh, so yeah, saying no and saying what you want rather than just saying no and going for that. So to me, that's the resistance. And I think of resilience as trying to make the community, and what I think community is the people and the ecosystems and the rest of nature that they're a part of, stronger in ways. So if it can be healthier, also, we're looking at ways for the community to be less dependent on the system as it is, whether there's more sharing when it comes to things like time banks or tool banks or the community gardens or more engagement, more uh, events, opportunities, and also more green spaces for people to get out of their homes and experience the rest of nature. So I think those are some of the things, and I'm sure there are many, many other things when I think about resilience. But I think in general, if you can try to be more self-sustaining as much as you can and less dependent on the system the way it is, so you're less harmed by it.
Sherry, what do you
I mean,
think?
yeah, I mean, I agree a lot with what Bill said about resistance, just that, you know, that people are willing to stand up and speak out for what they believe in. Um, and I guess in resilience, I guess the fact that a group of people have stuck together. I mean, a lot of these people have been around for 20 years and still show up. There's some resilience there, and I don't know, in rural areas. I mean, I'm part of a little group of people that we've done things like our group has put out a local farm directory to try and connect the local producers with the community, and it's just you see some of the obstacles to like making a community more local based, because so often you have both people working, husband and wife maybe working in a family, and for them to access and go to multiple places for food. I mean, people will try like to do some alternative systems, but it's been a struggle. I mean, there have been people that have put some real effort, a local community college put a eating local foods effort together to try and help like independent local producers, connecting to the community. And I mean, it's just been a struggle. You would think in an agricultural area like ours, but if I go to the city, I can probably access locally grown foods more easily sometimes. I mean, we have our farmers markets and things like that, but and and also there's a number of people in the area that also are pretty self-sufficient too, in a rural area that
Mhm.
so you got some people that are very independent, like where maybe I don't know. On the resilience thing, I guess I would say we're struggling. At least I'm struggling with it in our area.
hmm Well, it's interesting the whole because you bring up like another idea of like this individual versus the collective. That's kind of an issue that comes up a lot with community rights. So I'm interested if you guys have some thoughts on that. That's not an either or for me. It's like, but it's like it. I don't know how you've seen that come about in your communities, or if you just have any comments about that idea of the individual versus the collective, and where you think we are and where we need to go, I guess.
Well, I'd say that America has a history of emphasizing the individual over the collective. And there's a lot of indoctrination that you have to fight, but you realize that what makes you happy where you live is your connection to the greater community, your neighbors, your place, and so those things are what helps make life meaningful, and they also help provide support when things aren't so good. And also we can do much more together than we can as individuals. Individuals are easier to shut down or control in whatever the intention is. So yeah, I think especially in the world we live in now, we have to find ways to become stronger community-wise, and it means that we have to think of our actions beyond ourselves.
Well, I truly believe the community knows how to do it, because in bad times, when things happen, people seem to they'll automatically jump in there. I mean, there's been like sickness in farm families, and the farmers will come together like to harvest crops, and so we know how to do that. I mean, we really do. It's just kind of like Bill said. I think a lot of what we're dealing with is like things that have been, I don't know if the good word is indoctrinated, but we've grown up in this society where independence and taking care of yourself is seen as a strength, and being, this taking a village to do something,
Mhm.
hasn't been as prevalent, I guess. I guess that's what's unfortunate. I mean, we really know how to do so much, and we have the power to do things differently if we would all work together. It's just getting people to connect, um,
Yeah.
in times beyond bad times.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because I struggle with it too. We're like brought up in that same system. And I almost think sometimes it's so intentional. I remember starting in rights of nature for me is a way to think more of the collective, right? Because you're part of a larger ecosystem. And so while you're describing a farmer who's like independent, right, Sherry, and can be more self sufficient maybe because they can grow their own food and they know how to do that and all that, but it's like usually like the water supply, right? Like the Mission Aquifer, or if it's Lake Erie or whatever, like that's a lot of people rely on that, not just that one. So if it's harmed or poisoned, that affects them too. So it's constantly this like, yeah, this push and pull battle between, and I think you're right. The divide and conquer is a strategy that's been used forever. And so dividing the community has always benefited, that elite minority, the one, whatever. And it's like when I remember at the beginning, first time talking to someone about rights of nature in a group, and, I got yelled at and I'm called a socialist, or and I'm like, and then like a lot of
Yeah.
those people, I'm like, but well, the roads are like something that we all pay for, right? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are older, so a lot of them are probably collecting Social Security or the post office. And I'm like, what? Like, so that's the collective. I mean, but yeah, I think it is indoctrination, to think of that individual, just focus on yourself and what makes you individually happy, or think of, what's going to make your family more or you more and make more money and,
Mm-hmm.
more stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Another thing is we hear freedom, but there's responsibilities too,
mhm.
and so we need to maybe focus a little. Sure, we need freedom, but freedom within boundaries, and I think comes responsibilities are part of that too. Your responsibilities to nature, to your community, to the greater good and future generations.
Mm-hmm.
No, the water issue, I guess, for so long, our group, it was the factory farm issue, and we did delve into a little bit on the fracking issue and leasing and tire paralysis. But
Mhm.
the thing that I feel like was such an opening for rights of nature was water, because the response when people felt that their source of water was being threatened, it it was heartfelt. I mean, I was amazed at the response from the community. And I don't think in some ways they understand we're connected to the ecosystem, but they don't like the idea of rights of nature or I don't know. I probably didn't do a good job of trying to take advantage of that, but I do. I mean, it's just was amazing to me how people responded to their water. And when we had this genetically engineered fish farm that wanted to pull like over 5 million gallons of water a day and then dump almost the same amount every day, um, in the permitting process, people we had over I mean, when you look at our area, how sparsely populated it is, we had over 1,200 comments submitted, and it was just so touching to read those comments. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
still kind of chokes me up when I
Mm.
read these handwritten letters by people who were so concerned about the future and what was going to be left for their children. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sorry.
Mhm.
Oh
It
no,
Yeah.
I
just,
know.
I mean, it was
It
that
is.
heartfelt. And yet the state, because your comments aren't addressed in the Ohio Revised Code,
Mm.
this doesn't matter. The fact that
Mm-hmm.
you can be this wasteful with water, um, your comment doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's where the
it,
laws don't reflect the
yeah,
values of the community. Mm-mm. They don't.
mm-mm, not at all.
It's interesting because it leads into, like when you're saying that, and again, the real, like I'm seeing we're getting a lot of requests now from people with help from data centers. That seems to be like across the country and everywhere. Like it doesn't matter. This is happening and people are really like concerned because it's a lot of land. It's going to use a lot of water. Um, and people are upset, but then you also have that constant, again, like that individual collective thing, because people are selling their farm, they're being offered a lot of money. So to me it's just like the fracking issue was, right? They're being offered ungodly amounts of money per acre to make these happen. And so like what you're saying, Sherry, about this idea of thinking about the future and what are we leaving? And, just so like, how does that affect the community as a whole? And I get it. It's such a tough decision for people maybe who don't have a lot and have struggled, for most of their lives. But it's, again, I'm constantly thinking about that now. Like, and even the technology itself, like just because we can, should we? And I kind of feel like that's what people should be asking. Like, just because I'm going to make a ton of money, should I? Should I sell? Like, what about what I'm leaving behind? You know? But again, I can't make that decision for everyone. But again, it's that individual versus collective thing again.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, when you speak of data centers, Ohio, I think, is one of the lead states, and especially around Columbus, where I am, they're putting in many, many of them around the Intel plant, and there's this other plant, Anduril, coming up for drones and other things. Yeah, so first of all, when they talk about jobs, they don't provide many jobs. Very few people are needed to run those. Secondly, they use, like you said, a lot of water. Thirdly, they use incredible amounts of energy. And so we should be looking at ways to use less energy if we're going to try to not keep heating up the planet and making us dig a deeper ditch into our existence. and much of it is connected to AI. And so there should be conversations around that everybody should be having, but it's thrown on us because of the capitalistic system for profit. But say, should we even be using AI, or what uses should we use it for? But now it's fair game and open, and so it's just expanding. And then, like you said, it's another promise of technology. Some people are even saying it'll help us solve climate crisis. Come on, it's burning so much energy. I can't see that it's going to really change that narrative, and it's used so frivolously for all kinds of applications, and it's changed the way we're living. Students can just tap into it and it writes their papers. So these are big questions that if we had real democratic system, people would have some control over this and have some time to reflect and look at the ramifications, positive and negative, before it's thrown out there. But the wealthy are just, promoting more and more of these things. And we know with the energy now that's being used that, they're getting these deals with American Electric Power here in Central Ohio and other places. Ultimately, who's going to end up paying for that? We know the citizens will. We know that's how it works.
Yeah, we're told we need it now. I see
Yeah,
commercials all the time, we need it. I'm like, what do you mean we need it? I don't need
yeah,
it. But
yeah.
again, that idea of informed consent, the community is not getting all the facts before
Mhm.
these come in. So it's kind of interesting. And that goes to that idea of the indigenous, right, cultures and that whole idea of them asking for informed consent and then I'm thinking, well, we also would like that in our communities, which we don't have. And it's, beforehand, they just come in and they start the projects and all the things are signed and the T's crossed and the I's dotted and just accept it.
Yeah, and the deals are done, and you can't even do public records request on them because of the Jobs Ohio is not
Yeah.
open to public records, so you can't even get to find out about the deals that were made and for Intel and other things. So yeah.
Before we I want to make sure we talk about this, but Bill, your community is working currently on an issue.
Hmm.
And you mentioned it before, but you didn't name it. And so people might not know what that is. So if you could explain what your community is working on right now,
Yeah.
again, why and what some of the goals and purposes are of you guys trying to do this.
Yeah. Well, this is our fifth initiative, and we had one and the last time, and then COVID happened, and I won't go into the details of how we were kept, but we were told basically by the city that we should have been still collecting signatures even when COVID was happening, which is crazy. But that was 5 years ago. So now our new initiative is tackling the thing that's been keeping a lot of local communities passing laws on issues like I mentioned. If, say, Columbus wanted to raise the minimum wage, or Cleveland wanted to enact rent control, or uh, Athens city wants to pass a single-use plastic bag ban, or some sensible gun restrictions that Columbus has been passing. These things, even though we're supposed to have local control called home rule, the state preempts them. Preempt means that they're passing a law to say that no municipality or village can pass a law on those issues. And so we feel that's wrong because, first of all, what does it mean to have this constitutional right that's been in our Ohio Constitution for over 100 years if basically we can't use it when it matters to us? And it also deprives us of the right to experiment at the local level. That's how change is made. And if a community, to meet its needs, it wants to experiment different ways of doing things, and but again, it's being controlled by the state level. So so then we decided that we're going to have something that at the local level, first of all, awaken people to a lot of this that they don't know. Secondly, it challenged this notion of preemption. Now, let me say just one more thing about preemption. Some preemption is good if it sets like baseline level. Some call that floor preemption. So like say there's a minimum wage that the state has. But if communities wanted to raise it because cost of living is higher in different places, why shouldn't they? Isn't that a democratic decisions should be allowed? So, and that, but most of the preemption that's done is what they call ceiling preemption, where you're keeping communities from doing something on that issue. And so we decided we're going to say that Columbus has the right to pass local laws free from state preemption or other preemption, as long as we're not taking away rights that are guaranteed to real people, individuals under our Constitution, federal and state. And yeah, and so that's what we're after. And we just started this just a couple months ago. So we have 2 years to get our signatures and put it on the ballot. I think a lot of people are in support of this, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. We'll see where it goes. I mean, you also thought it might be a good way to bring community together, right? All these different groups with these different issues, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. So there are different groups that have tried to do. Some groups have tried to pass raise the wage. Some have tried to have rent control. There's one currently that they're trying to preempt ranked choice voting. So maybe not all viewers know what that is. I won't go into the details, but they can look at what that means. If a community wants to use a different way of electing locally, why not? New York City uses it, Alaska, Maine uses it, and many other municipalities outside Ohio, but they're trying to preempt that now. But yeah, so they're a partner with us because our initiative is striking at the heart of what they're trying to do to prevent their group, Rank the Vote, it's called, from having an initiative to use in Ohio. So, yeah.
Sherry, have you faced preemption at all? And I know you might want to tell the story of how rights of nature is preempted in Ohio too, because it was from your area, the representative that did that, I think, wasn't it?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, agriculture it is preempted. There is basically no local control when it comes to the concentrated animal feeding operations and pretty much agriculture in general. As far as the water withdrawal issue, that program was just created in 2019 by our state representatives, Representative Hoops and Senator McCauley, with no citizen input when they created it. But it also put all oversight at the state level so that we really have no local control over that either. Our state representative, and I think Bill, you were the one that did a public records request and revealed where our representative had been contacted by a member of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, and it was during the biennial budget bill.
Mm-hmm.
And requested that they insert language into this biennial budget bill that would prevent citizens from acting on behalf of nature or ecosystems in the court system.
That's right.
So, I mean, when we did our home rule charter initiative with rights of nature in it for the Machindo Aquifer, we went around the county. We did 5 community meetings. I met with our local newspaper prior to the community meetings, and we were very transparent that rights of nature was a new concept. Our effort to do this county charter initiative with this type of language in it had been not successful when it was attempted by other counties. And so when Tish, you mentioned being called a socialist, I was called a communist. And I mean, I feel like it's one of those attempts to fracture communities and scare communities because because of our low population, we easily gathered enough signatures to put our initiative on the ballot. And as Bill had said, the state legislature had granted the boards of elections authority that at least on the municipal side, now has been overturned by the Ohio Supreme Court, but it hasn't been addressed at the county level by the Ohio Supreme Court. So that prevented our initiative from happening. But I do think that the powers that be, and we've seen Farm Bureau was very involved, as well as our local Chamber of Commerce, of trying to scare people about this, and using words like socialism and communism is an easy way to do that.
I want to just ask you if you think that we're going to be able to make the necessary changes, to protect the environment and our communities. Obviously, the people are part of the environment, right? In the community, by working strictly through the system. And if not, like through changing laws and policies like this, and if not, what direction or actions do you think people ought to turn to make change, the needed change?
Well, I think that no, to make the change that we really need with the system the way it is, no, we won't be able to get there. We can do some things that will make our communities better. And like I said, try to do things that are working outside the system as much as possible. But when it comes to certain key things, the system works against communities locally. And I guess what it will take is enough people. They say sometimes it takes 3.5% from historic reasons of the population to wake up and say, maybe with climate and other issues and communities and natural disasters suffering more and more, and various other issues, that they wake up and say, no, we're really together organizing and pushing for a change in the way the kind of governance and the fact that we're controlled so much, and it seems to be getting worse from the big money interest, the corporations, the billionaires, and other. So that control has to come back to the people who have the numbers, but then the system has also done a great job in not educating them on a lot of things, and not and restricting them from organizing and distracting them. And that's hard. That's hard. So it will require people having the time, setting out the time to meet with community members, to really have discussions on where are we and where should we go, and let's really work toward this and learn about. We don't just try it once and we're done.
Sherry, what are your thoughts?
I mean, for one thing, it is going to take a huge number of people to come together, but I do think there needs to be, we need to have more discussions about just being really honest with ourselves, and being honest enough to look at the system. Not quite sure how to put this into words, but it's like with water, and I guess some of the exposure to indigenous belief, that our language, it it really is going to take a huge shift in our perspective. And I do believe that those that have power, no matter what we do, it is going to take a tremendous effort on the part of the people to change the system. I mean, you just look at things that should be so basic in the past, like the civil rights movement and the right of women to vote, what they went through to get just equal treatment under the law. And so basically, when we're asking to say that the people should have power, we're going to take power from those who have power since the start of this country. And I don't believe it's going to happen easily. My hope is that there's enough of a shift in people's perspective at the time that that happens, that people are really ready to challenge the power system, that will do the right thing, and create a better system. It's yeah, I we just need to have a lot of more conversations and education and sharing. And it is difficult to do, because I know the people that are involved in our group, you can get pulled into so many meetings, and then, we all have our lives to live and things to take care of outside of that. But I don't know. There's a lot of questions. I mean, it's exciting in some ways. It's just, how do you make that time to make that happen? Because it's just, I've always believed there's windows of opportunity where you've seen these shifts that have happened. And hopefully when that window of opportunity comes up, our shift in our perspective of our connectedness and part of nature will be in place so that we can do the right thing.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? The honesty that, and when you say that, we did that truth reckoning, right? It's that same thing about being brutally honest about some things. And like, it's almost unlearning, because we've talked about, the stuff we've been taught, like unlearning some of that stuff. And it's not any one thing that's going to make the shift. It's going to be all these things. So maybe working through, because like you said, Bill, your effort and yours, Sherry, that you've done up there, it's about educating the people and getting them to shift that perspective. And then maybe it's the next issue that comes that then it clicks, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's all important. The talking, the connecting, the educating. For me, like even just getting people to see that they are nature, because I mean, we're delusional to think we can be healthy and we can survive if the environment and nature is unhealthy and it's not surviving. Like, we're like, I don't know what world people are living in, that
Yeah.
they think that somehow we can just keep using and abusing nature and we'll just be fine if we have enough money. It's like, yeah. Well, anyway, any last comments or thoughts that we haven't talked about that you guys want to share with people?
Well, I guess the only thing is, even if there isn't optimism, you can have hope, and hope means you're taking action of some kind. Some people can do some things like we're doing, spending the time collecting signatures. Some can do other things of supporting groups and people. So I'd say that we all have to get connected in much more than just voting.
I guess, Bill, you mentioned hope, and I read an article one time, it's probably been 20 years ago, where it's when people lose hope that they're actually ready to explore outside and think outside the system that we've been taught to operate in. And that's it's been difficult. I guess the one thing that I've tried to bring up at our meetings every so often is, because we're always talking about fighting something what we don't want, and we don't spend enough time that if we had the ability to create something in our communities, that we had that power, what would we want? And in some ways, I think we struggle with that because we really haven't been given the opportunity to do that in many ways, because at least we found ourselves reacting to so much instead of trying to be proactive. And I guess that's when you spoke about resilience and the different things like that,
Mm-hmm.
of creating something like that. And we need to put more effort into that than all of our reactions to the things we don't want.
I think that's really interesting because that's, and that's a good exercise even to do maybe, like with your community groups. And that is to say, like, forget about what we have and like if we could change things, let's just put it down on paper, because that turns into then something it's tangible because, you've discussed, and then you can work towards it. Right. But we're all like trying, like you said, fighting things the way it is and trying to make change to what it is, without even thinking about what could be. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's really a good thought. And just, I wanted to let everybody know too that if they want to read more about your stories, Bill, yours in Columbus and Sherry's in Northwest Ohio and Williams County, that they do have their stories. We put a book out called Death by Democracy, and you can order that at the CELDF website, and we'll put the link. Oh, there,
right
Bill's
here.
got it up. Yeah. Yeah. And both their community stories, along with 5 other communities, their stories are in there. And even though, sometimes it's, I would say, I don't want to say some of them are depressing, I guess, but I mean, you show the resistance and the resilience to keep going. It's like that you don't get shut down. Like, no matter what the state does or says, or the local board of elections, you guys keep coming back. And so I think that's really an important lesson to leave people with, because it's the only way change is going to happen. We build upon what people before us did.
I want to thank you for listening to our show and let you know a few ways you can support Truth and Reckoning. First, share this broadcast with your friends and family. Leave a positive review via your podcast app. Visit the Truth and Reckoning YouTube channel and leave a thumbs up and a comment. The full scope of the work of CELDF, including this show, comes with a financial cost. So if you're able to make a donation, go to CELDF.org. That's CELDF.org. But most importantly, our goal for this show is to empower you to take action. So the best way you can show your support is to get involved with your community and protecting the place where you live. Thank you very much.